I would like to announce Miss Amita on the stage, Anil ji, as well as Mr. KavinderKalyan.
Hi everyone. How's everyone doing? Great. I'm Amita Singh and I have been an investor in the space of Web 2 and Web 3. It's been a decade now. And I also work extensively with Israel tech and Europe tech companies. I've been a pre-series A and early stage and pre-seed investor. And as part of emerging technologies, of course, recently with Web3, it's been 2 years that I've been a part of as investments in Web3. And in the past 3 months, I've made more than 15 investments in this space. So yeah, this is what I can say. And I work extensively with the government as well, both state, center, and also with foreign funding agencies, including World Bank, ADB, European banks. And now we are also supporting the government with the policy around blockchain, that how we can actually use blockchain technology and infrastructure across all their verticals, including environment and forest, textile, handicrafts, different verticals, health, education, and all of them. So it's basically the convergence of Web 2 and Web 3. It's also convergence of private players and also the governments, how government can play important role. In terms of regulations, we are also supporting government in terms of how regulations is going to help in Web3 basically in terms of adoption and scalability. So this is a brief introduction of what I can mention.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Anil Gupta. Uh, we run a very, I'm not an investor, right? So that's the first thing. The second disclaimer is that I am little novice in this Web3 space. What I definitely know for sure is that how things work, how businesses work. So I spent a lot of time, like in my early careers, with a government bank, which is known as NABARD. Uh, Basically, as part of that, we were making investment in real infrastructure, not non-fungible tokens. And then I started dabbling with the technology, spent about 5, 6 years in Infosys, wherein we developed few platforms. Again, it's a slightly different, it's a Web 2.0 version. It was a centralized platform. We deployed that in India, US, and Australian market. And in last 6, 7 years, actually, we are running a consulting organization, and I'm more like a consultant. I understand the macroeconomy and the interplay that we have with the technology and rest of the things. So probably I'll bring in that while we discuss and while we deliberate on this panel. Yeah, thanks for inviting me here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is KavinderKalyan, and I'm the CEO of Atal Incubation Center in Niti Aayog. I'll just give you a brief intro. I graduated from IIT Kharagpur in computer science and did my MBA from UK. I was an engagement manager in McKinsey & Company in London office. Then I came back to India. I started off with my first startup in food tech space in 2015 against Zomato and Swiggy. So there was some market sentiments down there. Foodpanda was sold. So we had to sell this company off to a New York-based company. Then I forwarded into medtech space. We founded this factory in Udyog Vihar, Gurgaon, and we did well. Then I moved to voice intelligence basically, and we developed this AI-based voice encryption system and enterprise system basically for various industries. The name was CIA, Conversation into Action. So we have worked with several government projects, and after this I moved to Niti Aayog, and I take care of this entire ecosystem in AI and computing. So I'm also trying to championize this quantum computing policy for the government of India. So very soon, by 2030 or something, this should be in place. And as you know, we are not going to have this monologue here. So I'm here to interact, to share my thoughts as well as learning from you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, all three of you. Clearly, we are not as young as you guys and have seen the world a little more, but a little different. But, both, all of you spoke about institutions and different institutions who have started taking deeper interest in the area of blockchain, crypto, and different applications of these newer technologies. So I want to throw this question to both Kavindra as well as Amita. where do you see the government plays a role in the regulations as well as in the implementation of these technologies?
So like I said about the government part where we are interacting with them, most of the state governments, starting with Tamil Nadu recently, wherein they told us that there are more than 13 ministries that they have, right from environment to textile to education, health. Most of these ministries, they wanted to put all these verticals under e-governance. So there's this nodal department called e-governance, and across that there are 13 plus verticals, in which now they are putting them on blockchain as a technology. So it's more about adoption of blockchain as a technology is what most of the state governments are now working upon, in which it's more about provenance setting, tracing and tracking, authenticity of the products, everything that is being produced. So of course this is one of the initiatives that state governments are taking now. In terms of central governments and the banking and financial institutions, even the banks, which is led by SBI, but there are 12 plus banks who have already now made a consortium. It's called IBBC, and now they are including, I think, letter of credits as one of the first initiatives, which they are putting it on blockchain. So there are a lot of activities happening. The only thing is that there are a lot of fragmented activities happening all across, and somebody, maybe as a central government, somebody needs to own it, and there needs to be some kind of accountability towards it is what needs to happen. And also in terms of regulatory, a lot of conferences like these and mainstream media, because there's a lot of discussion that keeps happening on Twitter, Discord, or Telegram, etc. But mainstream media adoption is something that is also important, imperative, and where we feel that government needs to be invited. METI, Ministry of Electronics and IT, are also organizing some of the conferences where we are participating, but it's just that it needs to take more mainstream role.
Just to add a couple of points to this, I think this is really the government of India through Ministry MIT. They came up this blockchain policy in 2021, and before that the government was also trying to formulate the entire process the framework. So just to give you an example, in 2017 there was a meeting in Chandigarh, and Ethereum co-founder was called there. So all these people, the stakeholders, all the IS people. So as you know, these people are from 80s batch. So they kind of operate on the operation model basically. So when he was talking about how Ethereum did work and how this entire ecosystem is going to evolve, so these people, you won't believe, they were not prepared. उन्होंने बोला कि यार ये क्या बोल रहा है बंदा, कुछ समझ में नहीं आ रहा. So it was told like you must have come prepared actually, because you are the government people, and you are going to implement it. You are going to the key decision makers in this space. So you definitely must come prepared. Then there was a meeting in Niti Aayog also, and afterwards in various ministries, so that we can really take this formulate policy across the entire spectrum basically. So way back in 2 months ago itself, in 2020 August, this blockchain forum was launched. You know of it, and transparency, security must be there. The government is really trying to hard so that this entire ecosystem can evolve. Still, as we know that by 2030, the entire ecosystem is going to be of value around 350 million USD. But this is still very, very less. There is huge scope. Even the Prime Minister office, which launched the PM Vani. So PM Vani was launched for the entire digitalization of the villages. But still, there is huge scope to go. And based on that, the RailTel, the founder of RailTel and Joint Secretary, Mr. S.N. Gupta, he championed this, and he came out with this plan that we are going to make this entire grid. And that blockchain would be called in Bharat chain in India very soon. You would know about it. And the government is very, very forthcoming, and we are trying to connect the various stakeholders, the government people, industry, academia, as well as researchers. And the most important stakeholder are, the new startups or the early stage startups, you people, even the students who are really trying to understand this national, because this is an emerging technology. So this is very important to connect to the dots of the entire stakeholder system, and must come forward. So the government is very, very forthcoming. Thank you.
So I'm speaking slightly out of turn, so I just want to add one example here. Amita spoke about some cross-border remittances on which some pilots are going on, and there are some early success. I want to share one example which we have seen and we have done it. In fact, as part of our work, we run a very interesting fintech lab, which is known as Financial Inclusion Lab in India. And in that, there is a startup by the name Chipmunks. What they have done is, I think some of you would know that in India, we have multiple financial systems. One is that we all are familiar with in terms of like banks, Reserve Bank of India and all those things, they run it. There's another parallel system that is again a regulated system, partly regulated, partly unregulated, which is known as chits, actually, chit funds in India. It's very big. In fact, frankly speaking, our estimate suggests it is something like, say, $20–30 billion is formal. 10x of that is something like which is informal. So what government has done it actually particularly is very important that government of Telangana, they came on board, they worked with this startup and they said, okay, we want to take our entire chit, which is basically which is working on the trust, and trust itself was missing because everything was happening on a physical record, and people, they got, say, there's a process in the sense like I'm running a chit, I get authorization from the government, but instead of running one chit on against that, I can run 10 chits. So people would never ever know. So what these guys, they have done it, they have just converted everything onto a blockchain so everyone can see, and it's a permissioned blockchain. And this is working actually, this is working very well in the state of Telangana. Unfortunately, we are not able to take it to the other governments and other state governments, and there are different reasons for it, but this is something which is working in the market.
So, first of all, thank you so much. I think these use cases are very important. How many of you would have ever heard of about a chit fund? Okay. So, not all, but a fairly large number. But the fact that chit funds are finally getting on blockchain is something I think is new for me, and I would believe is new for at least some of you. And such use cases are going to be very important going forward to not only sustain the technology but develop real value additions to the current system. So, coming back to the real focus of this particular panel, I really want to understand. So, what are the sources of pre-seed funding that are unique to the Web3 system? And I think Amita, it would be good if you can throw some light on
So for pre-seed for Web3, so it's primarily it's bootstrapping. It's there are a lot of accelerators and grants wherein pre-seed funding can be available for Web3 startups. So whenever they're in their idea stage, if you're able to counter an angel investor who's without diluting any kind of equity, they are supporting a lot of Web3 startups also with bootstrapping. That's another way of bootstrapping is also Web 2 and Web 3, but with Web 3 primarily it's a lot of grants. For example, UNICEF also has something. Then we have everything which is based on protocols, for example, Ethereum, Avalanche, Celo. We have many of these, R3 Foundation. We have several of these accelerators, foundation, grants, Tim Draper, for example. So most of them are really supporting the entire ecosystem, which is pre-seed primarily. So there are many such avenues of funding.
So one question that Anil I would like to throw to you is that, of course, this is not specific only to a Web3 startup, but how does a startup really prepare for the fundraising process, right?
So actually, maybe like let me take you to the basics of the business. So I always keep comparing actually what's happening between, say, previous era to the current era or the future era. Say you want to call it Web 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. But there are certain things which are actually business principle, I would say. Say if you look at what probably can help us be there, because end of the day we want to run a business, right? For running a business you need to have a scale, you need to have security, which was there actually in Web 2.0 version also, and this is one of the reasons why businesses are highly scalable, people trust them. Third is that in case of our type of discussion that we are doing this Web 3.0, we bring in decentralization also, which is unique actually, which wasn't the case in our generation so far, which is Web 2.0. So it brings me to the three fundamental things. One is that, first is that use case. say whenever you will see any new technology or any solution which is coming out, if it is not working on a use case, it's not trying to solve a problem of the consumer, I think there is a limited uptake of that. So this becomes the first part of it. Second part is all about scale of it. So if you have the use case and if you have the scale, there is a high possibility that you can always find someone who is willing to basically take a punt. Amita is here. I think she has been funding very aggressively in this space. And third is all about the trust. Actually, many of the things that I have seen in my life that they were fantastic. Sometimes they were ahead of their time, and sometimes they were not able to inspire trust. So trust is not one single thing. It's not that you can build trust because you have a fancy technology. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. And the second is that trust cannot come with only certain set of people. So you need to go a little deeper. Probably like one of the data point that I was reading, it says that only 5% of people are still on the blockchain or blockchain associated technology. So it's a fairly low number actually, considering that the potential that blockchain has, or say potential of Web 3.0. Maybe this is early days, but this is how things are going to happen. But as we build the use case, as we build the scale, as we build the trust, I think funding will automatically follow.
Thank you so much, Anilji. One question, Kavindra, which would be pertinent for you, coming from the fact that you yourself have been a startup founder and you now moved into the financial space. One thing that I really wanted to know is that what are the real life phases, or rather, what are the stages, early stages in the life cycle of a startup? What does a startup generally go through?
See, when I'll start with this point. Here we, in our country, our education system is a bit different basically, because we think linearly. So if we really want to solve some out of the box problem, so we'll have to go out of the box way and non-linear thinking basically. So usually there is this tendency in the startup founders and in corporates also that money is the first priority basically. So money is a consequence. If you are really trying to solve a problem which is worth solving, so money is a consequence basically. So in that, there is an adage in the corporate or startup world that the brilliance of idea is always less than the passion of the founders. So it starts all with the founders basically. If you are thinking something and some idea struck to you, there is a thought. That thought translates into the concept and idea, then prototype, POC, then you launch it. So we all know that the process, how it goes on. But the most first and foremost important thing, the founders must be real hustlers basically. Are they really trying to solve this problem? How passionate they are? Are they really committed enough? And if there is a team basically of the founders or co-founders, how aligned they are basically, and how much they share this value and vision for the company basically they are trying to solve. So that's very important. That's the first point. Then from idea stage, seed funding is there. They are going to take this seed funding. Then they graduate from one level to another level basically. So if they start from the seed funding, then there are various government programs they can go for. And afterwards, early stage and VCs are there. So, but the traction has to be there. At every stage, there are some fundamentals which needs to be solved basically by the founder or by the company basically. So these 7 stages are there, and once they are met, then the company is ready. Ultimately, the company or the startup with the founders founded, that should really solve the problem, and it should be in a non-linear way basically. If they are really solving a problem, it's going to take place. So this is how this ecosystem works.
Thank you so much, Kavindra. So I would love to add a couple of things that you guys said, or rather reiterate that one thing I feel, and I sit on a couple of IC boards as well, so when we get startups for funding, one of the problems that we face is that people don't even know the problem that they are solving, or rather they don't have a fair estimation. So there is this one startup that comes to mind, it's called Healthify Me. A lot of you might be using that as well as a health-based diet app. But what the founders did was very interesting. They went in the field for, I think, around 100 days, and they basically spent only 10 days for food every day, trying to find healthy food that would cost only 10 rupees, right? And this is interesting because that's true for most of the Indian population. They can't spend more than 10-20 rupees a meal, and that's actually a lot. While we spend around 300 rupees for a Starbucks coffee, that's not true for most of the country. So identifying the problem is very, very important, and when you go deep into it, as Anil ji said and Kavinder reiterated, if you go deep into the problem identification, your solutions are going to reflect that. And then of course funding will flow. But those two things are going to be very, very important. So coming from there, I actually wanted to know, Amita, specifically from you, because you have been in this space for, I believe, one of the longest among all of us, that we see a lot of Web3 startups going into multiples of funding rounds, having some of the highest valuations in the market. And, you know, the kind of valuations that they have achieved are astounding, to say the least. So can you tell us examples, first of all, of startups who have been able to do that, but also can you also make us understand why? Why is Web3 so important and is so beloved by the financial markets right now?
Yeah, so whatever I'm going to say, it's all my opinion again, because when it comes to valuations, you know, for example, I am a pre-series and a seed fund. And when we look at investing in these Web3 startups, of course, from day one, there are high valuations, and I really don't, we are basically the co-investors or early stage. And there's a huge gap right now, which I personally see. I'm saying this is all my opinion. When you look at a founder, when he or she is approaching you, and then they already have been backed by or verbally committed by larger players, and they are coming up to, you know, day one, they have like amazing valuations, and which even if you don't agree to, you are just coming in as a co-investor, so you do not have much say, and this is coming from my perspective. So of course, valuation is one thing which I think even after this market correction, and right now it's more of a building phase, what most of the founders are in, and we've been, I think, that the community has been able to understand that it has to be a very strong strategy, product, market fit, what we are talking about right now. What is it that in terms of defensibility, in terms of ROIs, what is the value proposition? Everything is a combination of what we are seeking right now. But yes, when it comes to valuations, there is a gap. So if you look at FIRE, for example, Prateek is a friend. So if you look at FIRE, I mean, I feel that, you know, that's one of the highest funding that has happened recently at a valuation of recently $1.5 billion.
1.5, yeah.
So, you know, that is something that I don't understand, you know, but yeah, so.
Yeah, that's true. Even Velma had the same thing.
Yes.
Her startup, and she was not able to imagine the kind of valuation they did.
Yeah. Another example I'll give you, Sundar Raman. Sundar Raman again is a friend. He's right now CEO of Chennai Super Kings, and he was one of the guys who had conceptualized IPL along with Lalit Modi. And recently, FanCraze got funded. So his seed round was $17.4 billion. I realized we were just talking over a coffee that, you know, we are thinking of doing something in cricket NFTs, and after, I think, 3 months, $17.4 million as seed round, and after 6 months, $100 million at a valuation of $400 or $500 million. So when you talk about valuation, again, I mean, like I said, I think you should ask Kavinder or...
I think this is, see, valuation is an entirely different game. The investor will always try to lower down the valuation, and the founders, they will try to up it. So somehow they have to intersect. This happened to us also. When I went for fundraising, and the investor was trying down the, okay, the initial valuation, this is 50 crore rupees. I was saying that this is 70 crore rupees. So somehow, in our local parlor, we say, na teri na mere, let us make it at 60. All right? But there were some method, DCF, Chicago score, and multiplier. But fairly, we came to this point, the valuation is around 58. 58 CR basically. So this all percolated to the point that the investor as well as the founder, they must come to the same point. All right, this is the vision, and these are the number of quarter horizons we are going to look after, and we are going to see it, and this much value the company is going to generate. So somehow you have to intersect. This happened to day before yesterday also. One of the startup I've been mentoring. So the investor, they infused around 17.5 crore rupees in that. So the valuation was around 150 CR. So somehow you both these two stakeholders, they have to intersect. This is very, very important. And you can learn all those methods, how the industry is operating, the multipliers, and the future value the company is going to create in that particular ecosystem. Because now various ecosystems are evolving to certain points. So those values can also be added. So that is an advantage for the founders basically, I would say.
So thank you so much. That's actually reflecting some of my views as well. That, you know, valuation aside, so I am Gujarati, like a hardcore Gujarati, and many of you might not know the importance of this, but when you get into the market, you'll understand how important it is to know what a Gujarati is. But the point is that I have seen 2,000 crore companies running 100% debt free, having zero debt, 100% family equity ownerships, and they have worked for like 6 generations. So one thing is always believe in legacy. That would be my 2 cents addition to this. That think about how it works after 10 years, what you're making, what will be the repercussions of it in 5, 7, 10 years. Don't think about an exit right away, because if you are planning an exit as a founder, then how will any investor have any faith in you? So when we are talking about that, we saw the recent 2 years and everything that happened after go into something that we call today as a funding Siberia or a funding ice age, and also into a market correction, as Amita rightly mentioned. So for that, Anilji, I really would want you to throw some lights as to what do you think, is it really a market correction? Are startups really not getting funded? Where are we in that space? What kind of funding is coming in today compared to what was 2 years ago?
Tough question. Let me add a couple of my cents here. See, we all know it's more like what market says, it's a funding winter. Funding is drying up. To me, probably that's not the right approach to look at it. I think funding is drying up in case you don't have right business potential, or you don't have the right use case, or you are probably not trying to solve the problem which really needs a solution. So I think as Kavinder articulated, that it's an intersection between what you want versus what funders are giving. We add another concept while we look at the classic way of funding is what we call it multi-stage parting. And frankly speaking, like when you are in early stage and all these places, like it's very difficult to see that what would be the projections, how do you discount and you arrive at those numbers. And but if you know that this is the total valuation, this is I am willing to fund, Excel can support so that I have the right DCF on the table. So that is probably that can happen very easily. But what's really happening on the market side, like if you look at it, market liquidity is really tightening up. So if you see that where the capital is moving, so capital always moves to the place where you have the highest returns, risk-adjusted returns. So if you see, like there's a lot of, particularly say for example, Indian market, capital is moving towards share market, equity, as well as on the debt side. If you look at the overseas market, a lot of money is moving towards a US Treasury because interests are rising, and they see there is a high potential parking of money over there. So what it means is that those who are the largest investors or those who have the pool of money available, they will find that probably they should take a break, or they should reduce their allocation on some risky assets, because startup end of the day are some of the riskiest assets that we see. So but I also feel that it's these are all temporary phases, in the sense like things get back to the normal. There have been a talk about recession, the world is going towards recession. The data also says that if not full recession, partially we are heading towards it. Inflation rates are high. So all those things will have impact on the startup cap market also. But still, if there is a value, if there is a use case which is driving that value, and if there is a high level of scalability, people trust, there are funds which are being raised. And as I always say that if you look at the market, typically 10% of them, they get around say 70 to 80% of equity capital that comes to the startup market. So that also proves that there are some which are more valuable than others. Sometimes it may not be true in the sense like you'll find that over a period of time they are not performing. I don't want to name them, but there are many such examples. We have seen even in the stock market what has really happened with the tech-based players on the market side. But I think there is always an equilibrium actually over a period of time where you'll find good, well-performing organizations doing good for them, going good for their stakeholders, which is investors and the users. And I think that is how this dice will turn for them.
Thank you so much, Anil ji. So, playing on to that, and this is to all three of you, I really wanted to know, especially for the audience today, that who are the major players in the process of fundraising for Web3 presently? And apart from that, I also wanted to nudge you a little bit, if at all, please do name names, because it's the new generation here, and we would love for them to understand and learn from our mistakes. That's for sure. Please don't.
You want to know the bigger players in this? Yeah, there are, more than 50 plus VCs right now, if you can look at right from Pantera to Anderson Horowitz to now Sequoia and Axel, Elevation, all of them are now in this space. So there are, all of these players are really betting big on Web3. With recently, I think $650 million from Elevation, maybe 20% of that capital is now going to Web3. Recently, what I've also learned is that 650 million plus investment is going to be, from all these guys, Sequoia and Axel, Elevation, all of these people. A16Z, of course, is a big player. Then we have Pantera. So all of these players are there in the market right now for Web3.
No, I think, InstaDapp and Polygon, you must have heard, they are really caught the eye of investors as well as the entire stakeholders ecosystem basically. So they are really doing very, very well. And from this forum, I guess we can have more number of startups who can really have that kind of value down the line. I wish you all the best.
So, I also wanted to know, because you guys have worked both in the traditional financial markets as well as in the government funding space, as in what kind of government funding is actually coming in the Web3 market. Also, how do you access those? Because accessing them is not easy.
All right. So, in this year itself, in January, Prime Minister Modi, he announced this 640 crore rupees fund through Startup India, and the government is going to offer that money to the startup through the incubation centers basically. So the government is doing very, very well on this front, and the government has also planned that like Niti Aayog, Atal Innovation Mission is there, the government is going to come up state missions also. So the government has advised the Chief Minister of several states that they should come up with state missions so that we can really grow this entire ecosystem. So the first mission would be started in Gujarat, I guess, and then Uttarakhand. So the government is putting all efforts to connect to provide that kind of platform. And I think because the government is trying to bridge these 2 points. So we must, the founders basically, the new students who are going to foray into the entrepreneurship, they are going to have all these number of opportunities. If there are some good problems that are to be solved, they must come up, and the government is going to offer that money. I guess there is a 5 crore rupees fund from TDB also, the Technology Development from DST. So that is just one single chunk. The startups can avail of that fund, and they are focused in 3 areas: health tech and Web3 as well as this waste management. So the startups can avail of that. The government is providing all possible support. That SIDBI fund was there, and initially the corpus was 10,000 CR. Then government increased that value by 3,500 CR also. And the government is trying all possible efforts basically. And a couple of weeks ago there was a meeting in the ministry, the government came up with this plan that Tata was there and Ambani, Adani Group was there, that we must really come up with a particular CSR, and the government mandated that 60% of that fund should be used for health tech as well as waste management for this particular year. I think the government is definitely going to plan that next year they are going to invest this much money into Web3 projects, blockchain, because that's very, very important. So you guys would definitely hear about it March onwards, 2023.
So, okay. So, Amita, one of these days you have to teach me what a DAO is. Sorry, I am still not sure what it is. But how are DAOs challenging VCs in the race to fund Web3 projects is something that I think you guys might be interested to know. I just want to know what DAO is.
Yeah, so see, technically, I really do not know much about it, most from the investment perspective, but it's just that, you know, it's not about reliability on VCs only, because with DAOs, you know, now there is a lot of access. Crowdfunding is not a new concept. Crowdfunding is an old concept. Even in Web2, in any space, we have been doing crowdfunding. But of course, with Web3, this has become easier. There are a lot of DAOs available wherein, you know, you do not, in terms of reliability on VCs, the valuations, the entire journey, you know, founders are really getting good access to money because of DAOs as platforms. So this is making VCs a little bit irrelevant and getting more funding through DAOs. It's getting easier. So yeah, and there are many such DAOs and platforms which are available right now, which gives you good access and easy access to money.
That's amazing to know. So now you guys have one more option to approach. And this is to each one of you. Can you share a few top concerns that you feel are, you know, concerns or pitfalls that could prevent Web3 from realizing its true potential in the industry? And I'm sure you have, because, you know, all of us have discussed about this. Yeah. So I would love for you guys. Amita, you can start, please.
So first thing what we started our discussion with was, you know, valuation. So, you know, when you, again, it's my opinion, we look at, there is a lot of money in the market. When you see even Web3 right now, there are, for example, Alpha Wave, it's $1 billion fund for Web3. And, you know, people are saying that, you know, do they have enough deal flows, for example. So there are both the sides, there is enough money, there are enough deal flows, it's just that there needs to be right match. When you talk about deal flows, what about the pain points that we are solving? What about the total addressable market? What is it about, you know, like I said, the returns? Is there a product fit or the strategy that we are talking about? So personally, I feel that the gap is about the valuations, because even if it's pre-revenue, both in Web2 and Web3, there are huge valuations. Second thing is about accountability of the founders. So is it about, you know, that we feel that, okay, we are pre-series, series A, and then after that we need not, because there are concerns of diluting of your equity. And in Web3 primarily, they feel that through decentralized funding, pre-series A, after that maybe they don't need to go to another VC, and they can raise funds through decentralized platforms without diluting equity. So I feel it's valuation, and second is accountability. Third is that as investors, one needs to spend more time on due diligence, which is both legal, commercial, operational due diligence, all of that. So this is also a major part of identifying right deals for investors. And also in terms of barriers to entry, because there are not many barriers to entry. Even if you start on a single chain, multi-chain, we see that you know, it's all about adaptation, community building. How well are we actually working towards adaptation and adoption, and also community building? So this is the entire end-to-end journey that I think we need to focus upon.
Thank you so much. Anil,
So probably I'll take a step back, in the sense I'll just go a little macroeconomic manner, in the sense like what's happening in industry, and what probably can disrupt, or where you will find some challenges. To me, actually, first challenge probably, or say some concern that I see is coming even from the regulators and the large corporation side. So in fact, many of them, they are trying to enter into this space. So I really don't know whether it will lead to better decentralization, or it can again lead to a centralized decentralization kind of thing. So this is something that you are seeing, actually, we are seeing in the market. Large corporations, they are also coming into this space. Like JP Morgan in Metaverse is the great example around that. Second is that which is associated with the risk. In the sense, like many of you would know that in India, central bank recently came out with a concept paper which is known as central bank central bank CBDC, central bank digital currency. So they have come out with a concept paper, and while it talks about all the things, whether it can be token, it can be account based or anything else, can be permissioned or permissionless, or they want to do it retail or wholesale, all those jargons apart, what also it brings in that which this concept paper doesn't answer is the risk to the financial market. So we need to understand that risk to the financial market. What essentially I mean to say is that CBDC will be issued by an entity which happens to be a trust or Central Bank of India. But you have the financial market which is basically running on the banks. So tomorrow, if there is a high volatility in the market, there is a recession in the market, people would like to, because this CBDC will be packed with your local currency. For example, in US it is stable coin like $1 to one stable coin. Probably in India we'll have 1 rupee to one CBDC. Name could be anything. They are giving e-rupee as a name, which is again a little bit of confusion around that. So if there is a run on the bank, people, or even if there is not enough run on the bank, people move money from the banks to the CBDC. What happens to the bank? Because banks are maintaining a fractional reserve system, which allows them to lend actually. If this happens, they will find it very, very difficult to lend, and they will basically run out of money. So they, in that scenario, they have very limited options available to them. So to me, that becomes a very large risk to the market. So in fact, of course, regulators are thinking about it. They will come out with something which contain those risks. That's the second thing. Third is that what we see in the core of the technology is all about the scalability and interoperability. So scale, I spoke about the scale, that I think scale is ultimately it's very important for any of the enterprise to succeed. You need to have the scale. You should be able to reach out to the right number of people so that you can build your business on that. The second is that I come from, say, traditional industry side, which is all about interoperability. What you are doing versus what I am doing, if they are similar in nature, how do we interoperate? So for example, you have interoperable payment system, you have cross-border remittance system, wherein you have one currency, the other currency, then you pack that currency with them. So this is something probably, I think there is some work which is going on, which I read a couple of days back, that there's some work which is going on around the interoperability. So this becomes the third very important thing. If Web3 has to become the future, or it has to become the mainstream, it has to address actually these two things. And fourth, I would again say the same thing, trust. I think as early diffusion, theory of diffusion says that it takes time to get from, say, early adopter to the late adopter. I think we are also passing through the same phase. It's going to take some time, and it will develop the trust. But it seems future is bright, because I also read that at least 140 countries, they are talking about CBDC, and most of the regulators, they are seized of this matter. They are working on it in some or other forms. So it means they also see some future, and hopefully we have a better trust, a network which is trustworthy, and which can become the, I would say, foundation stone for Web 3.e's scalability in the market.
I think Anil Saab and Amita, they shared a very pertinent points. And regarding accountability, I would say one more point, that the perception is very, very important. Like this example, the Bank of England, they came up with this policy that they gave this deadline for the all banks in UK, that by 6th of January they must come up with this policy, and they are going to take care of this principle of equivalence. So the government of India also, they thought that, let us see this, let us apply this induction effect, and let let us see how other countries are going to follow, what kind of policy and system they are going to follow. Then accordingly we will implement this framework. So this we all of know this LRS rule, that $2.5 lakh dollars. We all know of that. So the government is ready. Actually, the framework is also ready, but the government is really looking forward if other countries they come up with this robust policy, and once in those countries that is implemented fully, then the government will also implement here. So the government is, again, I would say that very, very forthcoming, and if the founders, they are really good. The perception management is important there. Like the government, as I said, that if the founders are really doing good and they are coming up with good solutions, then definitely that can really trigger an effect for the government also. We must really do something. Like someone, I would cite an example. In government system, we have this TOC, Theory of Constraint. Then there was a think tank that was founded by Michael Porter from Harvard Business School, and they came up with this plan that we did this for digital steel, and we can revive this entire government ecosystem in India. They wanted to start it off with this UP government, and they thought that they can really implement this blockchain policy and this framework across the entire government departments. But that things need to be moved, and I think the local founder, the local companies would be definitely taken on board, and government would be very, very happy to help that. So as we see more number of startups in this particular domain, that would be a trigger point for the government also. So definitely down the line, because the think tanks are there, policy would be there, white papers are already in the domain. So gradually this will definitely take place. The government is just sitting on the cusp. As soon as other governments across the planet, they implement it, the government would do it very soon.
Thank you so much. So thank you, Anil ji, and for your pearls of wisdom.
I just have one thing to add, from founders' side, because they, of course, you're coming from the government side. Because for tokens, there's BVI Panama. Then for operational entity, there is another entity. So there's so much of struggle that a founder also faces all the time in terms of regulations not being announced, and in terms of jurisdictions. They have to struggle. That BVI Panama, again, they're going to for anything to do with tokens. Then, they think of Caymans, they think of where should we all move down to Dubai, maybe because they are really helping us. So it's just that from founders also there are so many issues right now which we feel that if government really does not step up and catch up right now. I mean, we also have a think tank called Horizon Institute, and we have been meeting the finance ministry. We are really trying to push things, but gradually becomes so difficult. It's just taking its own sweet time, wherein we cannot stop founders from moving the country, from our country. So, this is something we must push as well.
See, just to add one point to...
Sorry about this to counter
okay,
you.
It's okay. See, we were occupied by external forces, and right now we have this 21st century technology available in India. And the management process is, 20th century, and we are following the 19th century principles. So somehow we have to, take them at the same point, at the same pace, because the emerging technology is there, but we are still following the process of, couple of centuries, 2 centuries ago. So the government is really trying hard, but I think this is the exuberant energy. They will definitely trigger something, and the government is, as I said, the government is very, very forthcoming. Let me cite my example. I belong to a village near Meerut. I was educated in Hindi medium, and gradually what we did that we were 2 guys from the same village, and when we entered IIT, we never knew what the computer was. We used to do this. I think the computer would start this way only. Now this guy, he is the computing head in Intel in US. So somehow with less resources, we can come out with those kind of solutions. I think this forum would do it definitely. The government would support. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I need to ask this question, and this is really connected to this, so I can, I live in the US, and I'm from village, and I grew up in Hindi medium. My mom didn't know what to read and write. But anyway, some people get lucky, but what I'm seeing in the US as well, and I have my co-founder here, Shell, with me, we are going through the same situation. We have Sharp platform, we have millions of users, and now we are funding these Cayman, and then we are going to Panama, and we did a BVI for the company, for the Inc. Then we are doing a Panama, I think we're doing Cayman for the foundation, and we have real business in US. And now we are hiring developers in India. So we are all going through that challenge, and what I'm seeing even in the US is similar to me. There are literally hundreds of co-founders, they are doing all this. So US is losing a lot of business in long run, or whatever the intellectual property and everything else. Same thing in India. But what is that Dubai is doing? Can we learn something from them? What can we do and move quickly? Because looks like everybody's going to Dubai. I talked to her today and yesterday. Everybody I talked to, yeah, we're moving to Dubai. And I think one of the pain points is there is confusion with taxation and all those.
Yeah, see, we are talking about decentralized world. I mean, you can just operate from anywhere, wherever you are. So the most ease of doing business, and that too with Web3. For them, it's not about, the journey. For them, it's not about that today we are making some announcements and tomorrow we need a cabinet of ministers to agree to something. Those kind of approvals like VARA and others are just happening over emails. So this is the kind of support that all the founders and startup ecosystem and all these people are getting there in UAE. Here there is more about people are getting scared. Even the founders that you talk to in the Bay, I don't want to name them, but the exchanges and others, they're like, oh my God, we don't even want to go to India. What if ED stops us? So, I'm sorry for being so straightforward. And it's just that, it's a bit scary right now in terms of what we're looking at, from regulations point of view from India. If you talk about blockchain as a technology, infrastructure, everything is fine, but when it comes to exchanges, it comes to anything which is talk about, remittances, finances, I think it's still not easy, and we really, really need to work towards it. You differ, Anilji, but...
No, I don't differ. Actually, what I'm trying to say is that probably let's look at the macroeconomic picture. See, the moment you talk about decentralized thing, the moment you talk about, say, decentralized thing or Web3, what comes to your mind? Say, every Indian, probably Bitcoin comes to the mind, right? So, see, what has
that
really happened?
That needs awareness.
So, basically, what has mean that anything that you want to do, the moment it touches the monetary system, suddenly there is a high alert. Government goes on the high alert. And the moment government goes on high alert, they will bring in all the regulations or all the things which will make sure that this doesn't happen. So that has been the first reaction actually in many of the markets.
Yeah, just to add, we can always have a sandbox model like a MAS has, Monetary Authority of Singapore. So we can always have sandbox model, we can always have some kind of try. For Gift City, for example, we had proposed that, we can have some kind of sandbox mechanism with Gift City, if that can be experimental, but there is no such mechanism as yet, which we can even try to experiment with them.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, see, till few years back, there was no sandbox.
All the founders, I'm talking on your behalf, by the way.
So there was. So it's a fact. Actually, in India, we didn't have the sandbox in the regulatory environment, and it came in actually last few years. And now we have sandbox in RBI. We also have sandbox, interoperable sandbox across multiple financial entities that we have in India in Gift City. So things are moving. In fact, this is how I look at it, that probably government made the first, I would say, attempt to first say, okay, we don't understand, hence we don't want it. And because there was a risk, whether to the government or to the policymakers or to the central bank. Slowly, they are awakening, and now you are seeing like central bank has come out with the CBDC, which probably was not on the horizon till last budget. So things are changing, and probably it will change, and maybe like it's a process. And
everybody will be in Dubai. Everybody will be in
so
Dubai.
see, I'll tell you. See, India is such a large market. Even if you want to shy away, you want to run away from this market, someday you will come back. I think this is what's going on actually in the market. Yeah, sorry, I think.
No, but I agree that we really do have to just Yeah, we'll open the floor for questions just 1 second more. But Anil, I would agree with Amita a little more that we have seen technology drainage from the country now for 40 years, right? We have not been able to bootstrap. We have not been able to basically bolster our processes and make them easier and compatible to the growing industry. And you're right. If Dubai can do it, if Singapore can do it, we can do it too. So why don't we? And I think this is not a question, just a suggestion that we really should start working on it. Right? And now the floor is open for questions. Please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. So, I'm very new to the blockchain, but being on the cloud for a long time, so we have so many like adoption frameworks, like why should I go for the Web 3.0? And as you guys are also talking about the government, so how a government should also, put some kind of GDPR or the PI information related restrictions, because once we are going for any kind of token exchange or anything, we are also sharing our personal data. So how we are going to make the people aware of, like, whatever you are sharing, it's not going to be hacked by cyber security? How we are going to make people adopt to the technology? How we are going to step ahead with coming to adoption of this Web 3.0?
It's basically, I believe, if I am paraphrasing you correct, we are trying to talk about how to make the need assessment more feasible, how to assess the need for blockchain technology, and how to make sure that regulations as well as people at large know more about it, and what part does government play in all of that, right?
Yeah, and I think we can discuss more on this. This is a longer discussion than just answering here, and there's a lot more technical as well. So let's take some more questions. Mostly around, if we have experts here on fundraising, investments, not too much technical. I wish you joined my panel before this, where you are eating food. Lunch is great, but guess what? Web3 is better. Web3 is amazing, right? Yes.
Yeah. One thing which is being discussed, CBDC, you brought it up. So CBDC is certainly not the government's move towards blockchain. It is a way of blocking blockchain. Okay. Yes. And this is true.
Blocking the blockchain.
Yes, yes. And this is true globally. In fact, the whole CBDC movement over the last 2 years was in response to the Facebook's Libra scare, right? That's how CBDC really caught the attention of the governments. So let's not miscommunicate the essence of blockchain, which is decentralization. And governments, by nature, are centralized agencies. So the fight is going to be against the government and not with the government. It's a question of how much of regulation we are willing to tolerate.
So you are right, actually. You remember that when I spoke about the risk or the challenges that we see as for industry, or Web3 as an industry, the first is that I spoke about regulators and the governments or the large corporations. So they themselves are going to come out with something which will probably centralize decentralization. So maybe this is a step in that direction. But I think it's too early to say. We can always, the way government has been naysayer, I think this community is also becoming a little naysayer. Let's see actually what finally comes out, because still nothing is out unless we see some proofs. It's very difficult to comment, but points well taken.
Yeah, and I think my view on that also, just want to add, even though I'm not panelist, I think more like communities, founders, co-founders, investors, government people, more they come together, sit down and discuss these, that's probably how we are going to solve these problems. So if you ask me the reason we're doing this Bcrypt conferences, that is exactly the reason, to find the problems, challenges, and how we can help these youngsters to go and flourish and don't block their visions and dreams.
And I give one example of chipmunks. Actually, this is there on the blockchain, and this is working with the state regulators. I didn't want to share actually the entire thing here because there is something murky over there. But this startup is struggling on two reasons. One is that state government is not paying their dues. Second is they are not able to take it to the other states. Though there is working blockchain in the state, despite that this is what we are seeing.
6 more questions.
Right.
More questions. Yes, right here.
So
Mike, can you bring Mike? Oh, okay, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
I want to ask this question, in a country like India, where economy is, that complex, if investors and fundraisers would say that we are going to shift to Dubai, then it would be very difficult, from the government's perspective. There is a guy in a village who is not even having a bank account. So just to say that, the businesses will move to Dubai or Singapore, and if they can do it, India can do it, we need to understand India's economy as well. And it's not very easy that tomorrow the Prime Minister of India will come and say, okay, we are doing this, we are doing that. It has to be a stepwise process, right? Isn't it?
But investors are still not moving to Dubai or wherever. The founders are moving to Dubai. Investors,
No.
as on today, I have invested in some of the funds who have invested across 18 countries. With every co-founder, you can say about, out of 15 startups, one founder is at least Indian. So it's just that it's decentralized. It's not about investors need to move out to Dubai. Yes, there is LRS restriction if you do not have exposure to your, banking across other countries. But it's just that I can still choose to invest in any founder, whoever is, wherever, globally. So that is not a problem. So it's not about investors moving to Dubai. It's about, so I'll give you an example. I think 2017-18, around late, no, yeah. So there were 75 founders who had made a group, and they had gone to the Ministry of Finance, and which was primarily towards the space of blockchain and others. It was 19, basically 2019, and it's a pity that most of them, 65 plus of them, are not based in India anymore, and they have shifted offshore. So it's just that we are not talking about that, we are strengthening, we are here to help. We are talking about, setting up some kind of sandbox. We are talking about let's have more such mainstream conversations. Let's not just say, okay, this is not something government is not ready. There's no kind of fear factor, basically. So it's just that what Mahesh also just mentioned about is that we need to have more such conversations. We need to really try and understand and evaluate what is in the best interest of economy. What is it that but we can't take forever, even as a government, we just need to understand and cope up with the pace of how founders are going. So, and that is going to aid the economy as well. It's not that, when founders are leaving the country, you are actually letting go of the economy that could have aided in the Indian, building up Indian economy as well. So I think it's more about having two different schools of thought, and we just need to have some kind of convergence in between.
Yeah, and I will add my view on from founders' side. Founders are, they are running against time, right? What you are building, there's like probably 100 people are building exactly same thing, right? That's what Web3 is, very open. You can go literally look at any project, say, oh, this is a great idea, I can build too. So if they don't move fast, or any startup, they eventually going to die. So if you don't have a choice, or you stay here or die or survive, go somewhere else. That's what founders' problem is. Nobody wants to leave their country, right? Nobody wants to leave their home, if that makes sense.
No, and one more thing I want to add to what you said, just because we have problems which are grassroots, and we have all worked in the grassroots areas, right? So a government is and should do both. Work on the grassroots problems while also solving the newer, more technology advanced problems. That's the role of the government, right? If we can't do both, then we'll definitely lag on one, and lagging on either of them is going to be a huge downfall. So just because we have those problems,
Like the panelists, all the panelists said, again I would reiterate that government is going to provide that kind of platform that this will really induce that kind of ambience. If the founders come up with the solutions and they can show that kind of traction, that definitely we are going to solve these. These are mini challenges, major challenges that may be a different point, but if there is some good traction, then definitely the government is going to provide that. Again, I said that the government is really watching the global other countries, and once this principle of equivalence is established, then the government would definitely help. Like I would give an analogy. When we entered IIT, our professor would used to say that IITs don't make you intelligent, they make you learn how to grab the opportunities. So that same kind of ecosystem the government is trying to build here. Once the founders are here and they come up with viable solutions, so definitely this would be there. You can create that kind of induction effect in the ecosystem, and definitely this is going to take place. I'm very, very sure of it. And the new fund is also going to come, definitely. Once this happened, way back in 2018, around January, I happened to speak to the Deputy Governor of RBI. They really wanted to scrap this entire that blockchain thing. कि कैसे करेंगे? Then I happened to speak to Honorable Arvind Pangaria ji. Sir, कैसे करेंगे? I think let us do it. This is really the thing of the future. We should do it. Somehow we must formulate that kind of regulation or something. So there was a think tank that was established, and various stakeholders were taken on board. So that ecosystem is, that kind of environment is going to be provided by the government, but the founders are there who are the key drivers of the ecosystem. If they come up with that kind of solution and that kind of thing, then definitely the government would provide that, I would say.
I want to make sure respect panel's time. If panel, you still have a few minutes, or you good, let me know. Just let me know when you want to go, but looks like there's interest. And as a community, that's our first and last goal is to make sure communities have, they get what they need. So if any panelists, please let me know if you want to leave early. Yeah? Yeah, yes.
We can continue.
Go ahead, please.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, this is Viraj. And I come from a background wherein I entered crypto space in 2018 as a trader, investor, went on to become a content creator. So I've been into this space in in a holistic way wherein I have learned a lot and been on the same curve again. So I have a question to you, ma'am, when I got to know about the background you're coming from, the way you've been investing and everything. So what I have observed here is every founder just want to raise money, just want to solve XYZ problem, right? So I just want to have an VC's perspective to whatever is happening around here, around the world, when you go on to investing. What is the real need? What is the real kind of product or services you think with the current crypto, metaverse, DeFi, whatever trend is going on, which is essentially going to make a difference, right? You can create a wallet, you can create an infrastructure protocol, L1, L2, you can just keep creating a lot of products, dApps. So what do you think will be a sustainable idea moving forward? Like when you talk about, build this, okay, we're going to support you, build this is going to sustain, and which will be in sync with the overall economical conditions globally? That's the question.
Yeah, it's a heavy question. But for me as an individual, I primarily have been investing more in the founders than the space or any kind of herd mentality that, okay, everybody is going towards DeFi, let's go and invest in DeFi. Or if everybody is talking about metaverse and NFTs, let's do that. So that's not how I have been personally operating. So primarily, I think my interest is more towards blockchain infrastructure technology as the layer, basically. And now I'm co-founding another fund, which is primarily into metaverse. So anything to do with NFT and metaverse is what we are co-founding. So yeah. So no such specific, till date. It's primarily behind the founders what investments have been made.
So we'll take maybe one more question. Yes. There's a question back there. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
We'll take two more questions.
Okay.
Or I will take more questions.
So I wanted to ask that Web3 is currently a new domain, all these NFTs, and if we talk about NFTs, it's just, as far as I can see, it is a fashion trend and not a practical application. So what does, what do you look like in a startup that eyes Web3 to put money into, and what are the key points that you look forward to when you are investing in a Web3 startup? Because I don't see a breakthrough technology or something great that can, capture the market as of now.
Yeah, so it's primarily about, everybody will talk about the team, they'll talk about sustainable business model, they'll talk about what are the pain points that you're solving. So it's actually a combination of all of these. Also the defensibility, the timing that you are in. So it's a combination of all, primarily.
Hello. As a student, I would like to ask, like, how do we ensure that if we have an idea, what R&D we need to do on that to materialize into a startup? So that was my question. And also, what are the factors that you as an investor consider when investing in a startup?
Very good question. Very good. Amita, would you like to go first? See, as I said that, it's all about the hustling of the founders. If, as I mentioned earlier, that brilliance of idea is always less than passion of the founders. Are you really passionate enough? Are you ready to hustle? And are you really, that should be in your DNA. It's totally. And if you have that kind of mindset and that kind of eye all around you, wherever you are working, day or night, so if the idea is good, obviously the idea may be mediocre, but if the founder are really good and that is really going to solve some challenges, which is prevalent in the society or industry or wherever it is. If the idea is good and that can really be built into the venture and it is scalable. If it is scalable, so definitely this is going to be taken forward. And there are various, government agencies, this entire ecosystem is there. The incubation centers are there, early stage founders are there. Definitely, once you happen to connect to the right kind of people, you would definitely receive help. See, there is a saying. Once I happened to speak to LinkedIn founder, opportunities do not float in the sky. They are attached to the people. If you are looking for an opportunity, obviously, invariably you are looking for a person. So you need to connect to those kind of people. And when you happen to connect, then definitely they should take place. About R&D, if you, like Silicon Valley, the government of India has come up with a very, very robust plan. We have come up with science and technology clusters, S&T. Because if there is an R&D stuff and some technology there, it should not stay in our tower. They should be pushed from lab to land. And that there are a number of professors in IIT and Ivy League or other academic institutions. They have done very, very good research which can really be transferred into or converted into very good product which can become a very scalable venture also. But somehow that mindset was not there. So the government came up with this plan that science and technology clusters were founded, and there are 5 S&T clusters in India. The 6th is in the offing. And here in North India, in the name of Drive, this is being run. So PSA, the Principal Scientific Advisor Office was founded, and they are really, really pushing it. They have come up with a very good fund also. They have connected to several Scandinavian countries. They are ready to invest those kind of R&D projects which can be really scaled into a viable business and venture basically. So that Silicon Valley model is going to be replicated in India. So these people, they also happen to connect to say various universities also, JNU, IIT Delhi, Ashoka University. So more number of universities are also going to be onboarded, and you will definitely get that kind of opportunity if you have that kind of R&D solution or something which can become a viable venture into ecosystem. That should solve some challenges first. All right, the team should be good.
Maybe just remember Steve Jobs' famous words: "Stay hungry, stay foolish." That will take you.
Yeah, hi, good evening everyone. My name is Shantanu, and I've been in this space for 7 odd years, all right, and been there, done that, seen the things, done that. But it's more of a comment and one small question to the gentleman who basically spoke about the government here. One is, of course, agar aap kuch cheez kar rahe hain, if you're doing something, please do it faster, because the founders need speed. All right, the government doesn't have speed. All right, at least for this matter, for that, okay, they don't have speed. Even in CBDC, they don't have speed. Okay, so my request if you can speak on your behalf to speed it up, so that we don't have a flight. So we are fighting, but we also see a flight. So fight or flight is happening at the same time, right? One. All right. Second part is when you talk about the multiple things that you say the government is doing, all right, how many founders current founders are there on any of the panels that the government forms? Any of the panels? I remember, Dr. Subhash Garg, he created a document, all right, which simply said that, I will, get people arrested if you hold a token, right? Now, it was written by a bunch of interns, legal interns, not one person from the industry was consulted. This is my understanding. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But my question is very simple. How many current founders, whether they are here or now they've gone overseas, do you have on any of the panels which is thinking about decentralization or blockchain for that matter?
Thank you, Mr. Sandhanu, for asking this question. Very, very apt question. Like I said that in August 2022, this blockchain forum was launched in Hyderabad, and these all 5 founders and this entire panel, I think they are going to have 14 members in there. And the government, they came up with this plan that we need to onboard these people who are really expert of the subject. So the government will definitely, if not, there are other ministries in which they have onboarded people from the, industry as an expert or in the rank of JS, Joint Secretary or something. So the government in the ambit of rule, they are trying to push it forward. Let me cite you an example. I have several friends from IIT who are in government IS officers. They're really, really passionate. In Ministry of Food Processing, my friend, he's the personal secretary to the minister, honorable minister. So he's very young. Even whatever he says, he works 18 hours a day, you won't believe it. And whatever he says, the minister listens. And the department is going to come up with the entire policy based on his feedback. Now, they don't listen to the secretary who are 50 or 60 years old. Because these people, to be very, very, I don't want to sound offensive or something, but they are really, really good. But their era was different. This was an operation model. Now, this is a new age. So that's why these people, they are coming up with a very new plan, new energy, and the government is going to listen. Government तो ये भी बोलती है कि आप गलती करो, क्योंकि क्या है ना, वो RTA वाला सिस्टम होता है कि कुछ भी गलती करे तो पकड़े जाएंगे. तो let us better don't do it. But that kind of mindset is being done away, and धीरे-धीरे करके वो जो ambit है, वो rule और law RTA के अंडर में ना है, धीरे-धीरे government is really trying very hard. One more example I would say, मेरठ का जो DM है, district magistrate of Meerut district, he was my roommate actually in IIT Kharagpur. He has been the aspirational district champion. He was deputy to Honorable Niti Aayog CEO, Swachh Bharat Mission, and he really implemented it. But you won't believe, when his wife was pregnant, and before this he was district magistrate of Shravasti district. In the entire district, there was no single gynecologist available. He had to keep his wife away in Delhi. And you won't believe, he was living in a rented house there. But with those minimum resources, he came up with this plan, and he really championed this entire aspirational district program. Now there are 112 districts, and we are going to cover many more districts. So this kind of energy is there in the ecosystem, and this is going to change. It takes time. Definitely takes time, because that inertia was there. As I mentioned, 3 centuries processes are involved. So, but this will be definitely aligned and will be definitely taken forward. Thank you so much for asking this question.
Just one small addition to what you said. So, in government, things have changed drastically, at least in the last 20 odd years, that we have seen newer, and Web2 has played a huge part. Now, all IS officers are on social media, and their work is on social media. And I think all of you know them as influencers now. So, the point is that there is a lot more exposure and public accountability of this entire system. So things have moved along in a big way, but there is one thing that I would also agree that there is a problem, that apart from not having a lot of industry stakeholders in the system, there is also sort of still a little bit of a gatekeeperism. So in the sense that, there are so many government programs, but honestly, I also don't know about 1/3 of them. And I'm fairly certain not a lot of people do. So if any of you can come up with a solution that can solve that problem, be it METI, be it eGov, any portal, then all of us will help you connect to them, right? Because we also want those solutions to be out there in the public, but it's not always that easy to make that happen.
So, thank you.
Just to add one more point, you must have heard about this Moonlighters and Wipro. So that was because of the government portal only, that digitalization the government did. That's why they were caught. So the government is really putting all those efforts, and definitely the government will come up with next plans also, and they will really support all the founders. But this is the energy, because this is the prime of life. We can do more number of things with less efforts. So let us really channelize this energy and make an impact. Complain less.
Together, we'll take one more last question from Shell.
Yes, if you don't mind, because sometimes hearing something from an outsider may be helpful. I don't know, but I'm going to try for a couple of minutes. So, I live in US, I grew up in Europe, I worked on 5 continents, I lived in 17 countries and visited 62. During that process, I've learned that the most important element of any technology or industry or segment is what you are, human capital. If we don't take care of the human capital, then forget about blockchain, Web3, and all of that. And so that is something that's amazing for me, is to come in from the outside and explore and experience the amazing energy. I've been to 2 or 3 university campuses. I'm blown away, honestly. You know, so the government, nothing personal, but you need to take care of that. Not just you, all of us, but that needs to be handled, because if we don't get funded for our startup here soon, our next trip is to Dubai. So don't take this personal, but when you say speed, not you personally, but when a government says speed, they mean rickshaw. When we as founders say speed, we mean Ferrari. So there's a big disconnect, because when you guys talk sandbox, I did my first smart contract 6 years ago in the Singapore sandbox. So when I hear, let's think about a sandbox, duh, honestly. And speed is the most critical part to succeed. But what we are talking about now, if we don't do it tomorrow, if you don't appoint a minister of multiverse, metaverse tomorrow, shame on you, honestly, you know.
Thank you.
Anyway,
Thank you
that's
very
just
much.
a comment from the sideline. Thank you for your time.
Just I want to add a bit of contrarian view here. Reason is, see, we are equating a small business with a large country. So both will have their different speed. And I think this innovation and the policies or the regulation, this has been in debate for decades. So those who believe that innovations can change their lives, they want to do it as fast as possible. But there are always some things which policymakers think of. This is beyond what probably we are entitled to discuss here. So I think we have to take it with a pinch of salt. We agree that there has to be speed, it has to be faster. Probably somewhere we will have to come together, if not in rickshaw, but not in Ferrari. Can we come closer to something like ambassador of 18th century, or sorry, 20th century at least?
No, the fact that all of us are sitting here, and you have people from the government, from BFSI, from the venture network sitting here, and leaders in their own industries sitting here and talking to you about it, is a start of this dialogue and opening up this market in a big way. So closing this session, and I know we all are here to still listen more to these pearls of wisdom being given out, but time is of the essence. So thank you so much, all of you, for being here. And we do appreciate a lot of the work that is being done, and we applaud it in a big way, and we are just putting our views out there that there's a lot more to be done, so that can be started, thought of, and done in a big way. That's it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. And based on this energy, what I see is, I personally think we're going to do more of these, because looks like this is in most need. Look, people are awake still. No, they're like, looks like there's a lot more questions. So I'm going to try to, if we can do more of these, and invite more people from different, government and private sectors and investments. So everybody, thank you so much for hanging around with us. Appreciate it, panel.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate. Thank you so much.
Can we give a standing ovation to amazing panel here, please? Yahoo!